Have you ever wondered what it's like to be inside someone's head? For Ingmar Bergman, this is simple. Just take a look at his entire filmography. With a career spanning over 61 years in both cinema, television, and stage, Ingmar Bergman has become widely known as the godfather of Swedish cinema and one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. Tackling multitudes of genres in his works from comedies to dramas, his works lead us on a fantastical journey through his inner psyche, his characters and narratives often a mirror of himself. So what makes Ingmar Bergman such a critically acclaimed director? Let's take a closer look. Ernst Ingmar Bergman was born on 14 July 1918 in Uppsala, Sweden, to conservative parents. His dad was a Lutheran minister who had very strict ideas on parenting, which played a big part in influencing his works. Growing up in the church, he paid more attention to the church murals than his father's sermons, which were ingrained in his memory, serving as inspiration for his later works. At a young age, his interest in theatre was sparked after receiving a magic lantern for Christmas, originally intended to be a present for his brother. Creating his own sets and puppets, he performed plays from August Strindberg, a Swedish playwright, which eventually led him to study art and literature in Stockholm University College, where he was heavily involved in theatre productions, completing various scripts even though he did not graduate. While there, his works picked up the attention of Svensk film industry, offering him an opportunity to work on scripts. The studio would later become the producer of many of his films. His first script for Al Schubert, Torment, took off. This was where his career began. The auteur debate and the idea of authorship started in the mid-1940s, as many critics debated on who was the real author of a film. As they settled on the scriptwriter as the true author of a film, Andre Bazin and Roger Linhart disputed this argument, claiming that the director was a true author. This opinion was cemented in François Truffaut's essay, A Certain Tendency in French Cinema in 1954, where he criticized traditional cinema, instead arguing that directors with full control over the execution and the presentation of the script created better works. Around this time, Ingmar Bergman's career was just beginning to take flight. Why then was Ingmar Bergman considered an auteur? To further focus this analysis, we can take a look at this quote from Renoir. A director makes only one movie in his life, then he breaks it up and makes it again. This quote further clarifies Bergman's auteur status. To properly define Bergman's large body of work might seem a challenge, but films made at certain points of his illustrious career present a clear identification of themes, narratives, and styles across his works. Few filmmakers expose the audience to such visceral emotions like Bergman. In Images, My Life in Film, Bergman says, I have always had the ability to attach my demons to my chariot, and they have been forced to make themselves useful. In most if not all of his works, Bergman infused bits of his life into the narratives, essentially allowing us to pick through his mind through his works. Themes like existentialism, religion, sexuality, and infidelity echo throughout his filmography. However, his career can be broken down into 5 parts. Early on, in works like Summer Interlude, inspired by a teenage fling Bergman had at 16, he dealt with young couples and love. Moving on, he tackled marriage, infidelity, and the role of the woman in Smiles of a Summer Night, in which a group of people switch partners. At what is considered his peak, Bergman focused on existentialism, men, and religion in films like The Seventh Seal. Bergman harkens back to his religious upbringing, the film's title in itself a quote from the Bible. This, paired with the constant debate on the silence of God throughout the film, presents the first of numerous films where Bergman tackles this question. He focused yet again on the role of the woman in persona, albeit with more experimental techniques. As a result of a tax incident in 1975, Bergman went into self-imposed exile in Germany, where he directed 3 films before temporarily returning to Sweden for his final film. Towards the end of his career, his works became more autobiographical, like Fanny and Alexander, which was largely based around his own childhood and upbringing. From this breakdown of each phase of Bergman's work, we are exposed to Bergman's personal philosophies, motivations, and inspirations behind his work. One theme that stands out in numerous works would be the concept of marriage or pairings in Bergman's films. Perhaps Bergman's interest in exploring the relationships or the breaking down of them between 2 people stemmed from his own personal life, having been married 5 times along with affairs with other women. In his explorations with relationships, he has created fascinating interactions between his characters, often poetic. In one of his highly praised films, Scenes from a Marriage, Bergman presents the epitome of his explorations with relationships and marriage, as we see a couple fall apart over a period of 5 episodes or 3 hours in theatrical version. As always drawing from his own life and experiences for inspiration, Bergman managed to create this sense of realism through the narrative and the actors' performances, with critics praising the film as one of his best works. Beside marriage, Bergman again explored the idea of pairs in persona, with the narrative heavily revolving around the interactions between patient and a nurse. Moving on from this, Bergman's unique and experimental visual style is another aspect of his work that stands out. Together with his cinematographer Sven Nykvist, who worked with Bergman on 18 films, they formulated the unique style that perhaps added to Bergman's reputation in the art cinema world. This can be seen in films like Persona. Persona tells the story of a nurse, Alma, played by Bibi Andersson, who cares for a patient, the actress Elizabeth, played by Liv Ullmann, who suddenly refuses to speak. While together, Alma soon starts to behave like Elizabeth. The film opens with a series of abstract imagery with seemingly no connection to the other. A crucifixion, a boy, the slaughter of a lamb, and a spider. One of the most unique shots of the film was created in the editing room, which combined the unflattering sides of the faces of both actresses, a decision made by Bergman, as according to him, everyone has a more attractive good side and a bad side. This created a rather unusual final image that even the actresses could not recognize themselves in it, while at the same time emphasizing the film's narrative of the merging of personalities. Although there are still many other aspects that solidify Ingmar Bergman's reputation as an auteur, his utilization of similar themes throughout his works and his unique visual styles plays a large part in justifying his status as an auteur. The general consensus of most of Ingmar Bergman's works would be in high praise of the director for his films. However, this might not apply to all who watch his films. Perhaps some might dismiss his works as dialogue-heavy and boring or pretentious. To truly appreciate Bergman's works, it is just as important to understand the historical context and the inspirations behind them in order to generate a widened perspective on the films themselves. On second watch, the film would seem entirely different. Such is the beauty of Ingmar Bergman's films. In The Magic Lantern, Bergman says, "No form of art goes beyond ordinary consciousness as film does, straight to our emotions, deep into the twilight room of the soul." This to me is one of the greatest takeaways from the works of Ingmar Bergman. Through his career, Bergman has convinced audiences worldwide of this statement time and time again, that film can be treated as an art form. This perhaps should be emulated in every filmmaker's works as much as possible, to strive to connect and establish a bond between the audience and the film, with the amount of power wielded by a filmmaker in a 2-hour time period. His greatest legacy will be the countless individuals that he has inspired, from David Lynch to Woody Allen, and the works that they too have created, along with the many others who still appreciate his films to this day, who might be inspired to be a director in the future.